Stephen, you called Trump's takeover plan sheer lunacy, writing in Foreign Policy. I want to play devil's advocate here for a second and just wonder if there is maybe an alternate intention. Donald Trump helped negotiate the Abraham Accords a few years back. Is there a way to look at this as in a more generous light, to say maybe he's saying this so that Saudi Arabia comes to the table and says, no, we're going to actually help with the rebuilding? Because so far the idea of rebuilding Gaza, the plan for rebuilding Gaza, non-existent. There is no plan for rebuilding Gaza. The Israelis have put nothing forward. But if this ceasefire is going to continue, there's got to be a plan at the end of the road. Saudi Arabia has said there's got to be a plan for Palestinian statehood at the end of the road if they're going to maintain normalized relations. So in a generous reading of this, can we say that this is maybe Donald Trump being at the extreme end of things to get things moving?
Well, that is really generous, Katie. I use the term sheer lunacy for a very specific reason. It's precisely because the president has a series of goals in the Middle East that makes this proposal to ethnically cleanse Gazans from the area and move them to Egypt and Jordan. It would undermine everything that he has sought to do. If you want the Saudis to play ball on Gaza, you don't threaten to move Palestinians out, take over the Gaza Strip, and quote unquote own it. That's unlikely to get the Saudis, who are reluctant, without a doubt, who are already reluctant to get involved in the Gaza Strip because it's throwing good money after bad. But this is less likely to get them to do the kinds of things that he wants to do. So, whereas I have heard this generous interpretation of things, that he's just doing this so that he gets the Saudis, the Egyptians, and the Jordanians to step up. It seems to me that given the fact that transferring Palestinians to Egypt is seen as a security threat from the perspective of the Egyptian government and a threat to the stability of the kingdom in Jordan, he's less likely to get them to step up and more likely for them to say, which is essentially what they have been saying, is we're willing to risk our aid in order to oppose this plan.
I wonder about the security threat to the United States for trying to attempt something like this. The National Security Advisor, Mike Waltz, was on CBS this morning. He was asked that question. Here's the answer.
From an American perspective, does this make Americans safer? The first concern people will have is, well, there's terrorism there. Is there now going to be terrorism here because we're so mixed up in this?
Well, it's the same. I mean, I think it's the same strategy and thinking of why we still have forces going after ISIS all over the world. We still have allies and partners helping us with al-Qaeda. The president just authorized on Saturday a strike to a major ISIS financier, recruiter, and leader in the caves in northern Somalia that, frankly, our military have been trying to take out for well over a year and couldn't get the approvals from the previous White House. So I think what you're asking is, why do we support our allies and partners in counterterrorism with a group that is literally promising to conduct future October 7th, which was the 9/11 for Israel of their time. So absolutely, we're going to continue to help. And when we have terrorism defeated and degraded abroad, it helps the homeland here.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure that was an answer. I think the question more was, is this going to inspire more hatred toward the West? Does this unite the Middle East against the West? Is this making us safer here?
Yeah, I think the National Security Advisor, who has a good reputation, was purposely evading the question there. I'm not sure whether it unites the Arab world any more against the United States than it already has been. But the idea that the United States was going to go in and clean up and own the Gaza Strip, that is going to require a major military operation and combat. And the reverberations of that combat can be felt not just in the Gaza Strip, but well beyond, as we've seen from our misadventures in Iraq and other places in the region. So this is a dangerous and destabilizing idea that the president put forward last evening in his press conference. And I think that it will only result in grief if they try to implement it. Once again, even if this is something just floated to motivate governments in the Arab world, it's unlikely to get the desired result.
Let me ask you, Jake, the question that I started with is, what is the intention here? I'm going to ask you to go broad. I just listed the number of things that have happened in the past two and a half weeks. I left some of the things off there. Otherwise, the list would just have gone on too long. There's been so much that Donald Trump has attempted to do, legally, illegally, with the power that he believes he has now in the White House. This shock and awe, it's where our heads are whipping back and forth. What's this story? What's that story? Do you have a better sense of what the intentions are here, what the intentions are among Republicans in Washington for the next 4 years?
Well, there's probably two intentions, and they're intertwined and sometimes at conflict. There is what Trump is doing, what he said he's going to do effectively. He's trying to shake up the government, do all these things. And Jim Jordan told me something interesting during the campaign season before Donald Trump won. He said Trump should do some things, should fire some people legally and illegally, and say, sue me. So they see this, Republicans broadly speaking, see this as this guy won, he campaigned on most of this stuff, and let him enact it. Then you have the other side of the coin, which is the blocking and tackling of governing, Katie, funding the government, raising the debt ceiling, passing a tax bill, getting California wildfire aid. And as we wrote earlier this week, for every action he takes on one side, there's an equal and opposite reaction when he needs Democratic help. And I've been shouting this from the rooftops now for a week, because we're 30-something days away from a government shutdown. And if you think that Democrats are just going to lay down and fund government when Donald Trump is tearing the entire place up, I think you're sorely mistaken. So the common thread is, someone asked me how crazy this is, if I was surprised. I don't find myself as surprised as I was in 2017. Maybe I'm desensitized to it. I understand some of the things are legal. Some of them are on their face illegal. I expected all of this and more, and I think members of Congress are delighting in a lot of this.